theyeshiva.net.
So there was this Jew who was a very, they used to call them mayeke, extremely particular about his preferences in life. And he had a flight with Swiss Air. He phones up 6 months before the flight to make sure that he gets the seat 38C, because he must sit in an aisle seat. They guarantee him 38C. A month later, he phones again to confirm it, and they confirm it. And so each month, he phones again, and they confirm you have your aisle seat 38C. And a month before the flight, he calls again, yes, C, aisle. A week before, a day before, finally he comes to the airport 6 hours before his flight. No assigned seating yet. When he gets his boarding pass, he gets onto the plane. To his horror, he sees that he got 38B. He's sitting by a window. He was not given his aisle seat. Outraged is not the word. He lands. His wife calls him. She says, Jack, how was the flight? He says, you call that a flight? 6 months I called them that I want an aisle seat. 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month. They lied. I'm going to sue them. I will close down this airline. His wife says, my dear husband, darling, if it's so important for you to have an aisle seat, why didn't you just ask the person near you to switch seats with you? He says, ask. There was nobody there. You see, some people are stuck. And when you're stuck, you're just stuck. Now, you just got it, okay. That's fine, no worries. I still didn't get it. Now, today we discuss, as the title that was given, how to discover your spark, the process of change. You know, Yom Kippur is coming. Yom Kippur, there was a very interesting prayer that the high priest used to make, and it always baffled me, it surprised me. It was once a year, the holiest day in the Jewish year, that the high priest, the holiest Jew, would go into the holiest space. So you had the convergence of three of the holiest dynamics in the Jewish world: the holiest space, the holiest man, and the holiest time. And they came together. The Kohen Gadol, the high priest, entered into the Holy of Holies of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem on this day of Yom Kippur. He was not there for long. Oh, excuse me, sorry. He was not there for long, but when he comes out, he would utter a small, short prayer. And we recite this entire prayer, very brief, every single Yom Kippur. When we review the experience of the high priest in the Holy of Holies and coming out, we go through the prayer. What did he say right when he comes out on Yom Kippur from this holiest space? You would expect him to speak about things that relate to the entire people, their fate, their destiny, and that's indeed what he does. Number one, he asks that there should be enough rain. Remember, Israel, the Middle East, it's semi-arid. You need rain. It's very difficult to have produce without rain, and that would mean starvation, famine. He asks that the nation should have enough livelihood to support itself. Got it. He asks that the enemies should not be able to destroy the people. He asks that the people should not lose their sovereignty, their independence. They should be able to continue to live in their country and their homeland. But then he asks for one more thing. This should be a year shaloi tapil isha pri bitna. No woman should have a miscarriage this year. No miscarriage. Now, it's a wonderful prayer. It's a great thing to ask for. But I wondered, why doesn't he ask that somebody who is infertile should be able to have children? that people shouldn't get sick, people shouldn't die prematurely. From all the individual requests for people's health, for people's lives, he discusses only one issue. No stillborn babies, no miscarriage in the womb. Lo tapil isha pri bitna. He doesn't even ask for healthy births, for healthy children, which are all critical and vital blessings. But he doesn't get into the details of what every person needs. He discusses what the nation needs as a whole. But this, he discusses, no miscarriage. Why this? Right when he came out of the Holy of Holies. Friends, there is something else that always perturbed me. Most of us, or all of us, this Yom Kippur night, Tuesday night, will go to a shul, a synagogue, a temple. And everybody knows that the holiest prayer in Judaism is considered Kol Nidrei, which is the opening prayer of Yom Kippur services in every Jewish community the world over. From Brazil to Sydney, from Miami to New York, from Honolulu to Peru, from Moscow to Tel Aviv. Every Jewish shul starts off with Kol Nidre, and the song, the melody, is heart-stirring. In fact, it's a melody that triggers deep Jewish emotions. I once read that Chazan Yossele Rosenblatt, the famous cantor Yossele Rosenblatt, he was offered, and he was a poor man in the 1920s, close to $50,000, which was an astronomical sum of money, to perform the Kol Nidre in Vienna, which was the center of international opera. And Yossele Rosenblatt refused. He felt it would be profane to perform Kol Nidre outside of Yom Kippur in a public concerto setting. Okay, I don't think a lot of Jewish singers do it today, but this was Yossele Rosenblatt. He was a unique person, very great cantor and a God-fearing Jew. So, the melody is stirring. Kol Nidre. But the words are in Aramaic. I want you this year to take a look in the English prayer book, the English Machzor, and see the English translation of Kol Nidre. And here, one must be perplexed why these words invite such a melody. Do you know Kol Nidre is not even a prayer? It's not a request, it's not a song, it's not a poem. You know what it is? It's a legal declaration, a legal verbal declaration about absolving vows. Basically, what we say in Kol Nidre is this: all the promises, all the pledges, all the oaths, all the commitments that I'm going to make from this Yom Kippur till next Yom Kippur, I hereby annul. Why? Because Judaism holds language to be sacred, words to have deep value, commitments have profound significance. If I say, I swear this year I'm not going to eat cheesecake, but then I come to a YEHUDI Conference, and there's a delicious piece of cheesecake, and as we heard before, it's going to be on the rooftop also, so I can eat the cheesecake and also have a view. I can't resist it. If I now go and take the cheesecake, I violated my vow. So on Yom Kippur, when most Jews are in shul, we publicly declare that whatever we commit to next year is worthless. Don't take it seriously. Which is why Jews always say, I'll do it bli neder. I'm not promising. Which often means, of course I won't do it. I'm just not so comfortable to tell you no, so I just say I'm not promising. But really that's what we do in Kol Nidre. In Kol Nidre we say, don't take my commitments that seriously. I'm committing, but it doesn't have any authority. It's not called a neder, it's not called a promise. And that way, even if I don't fulfill it throughout the year, I didn't violate any sin because already retroactively it's nullified. Okay, maybe a good idea, but is that inspiring? Is this so meaningful? Is this spiritual in any way? And yet this melody is so heart-stirring. So the great thing is that most Jews don't know Aramaic. So they don't know what they're saying, and it sounds cute. And the melody is certainly moving, so it works. But if you would match the lyrics to the melody and you understand the lyrics, oh my God. I'll give you an example. The last line we say, Nidrono lo nidre aserono le asorish v'asana lo shavuos. Who knows what that means? Nobody. But now I'm going to do it for you in English with the melody. And you tell me, does this make sense to you? My promises are no promises, and my pledges are no pledges. Ay, 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 crescendo. And my oaths are no oaths. Wow. Wow. My oaths are no oaths. And we go through the whole Kol Nidrei, saying this in different ways, different forms. Shvikin, shvisim, ptelin, umavotolin, here again. My oaths are absolved, and they're naught, and they're meaningless, and they're nothing. La shirin vela kayamin. All my promises mean nothing. Something very strange. So some associate it with times of the Spanish Inquisition in the 15th and 14th century, when many Jews converted to Christianity superficially, and they were called by the Spaniards, they were called Moranos, which really means pigs. They called these Jews pigs because they felt their conversion was not genuine, and it was not genuine. They only converted out of coercion. And Yom Kippur was once a year they came to pray privately, secretly, because it was Yom Kippur. So the prayer of Kol Nidre assumed deep significance because they were basically saying that the vow that they made to the church was annulled. The vow that they would make to the church was absolved. That's what some say historically created the emotion associated with Kol Nidre. But the truth is, the tradition of Kol Nidre at the opening of Yom Kippur goes back centuries before the Spanish Inquisition, ultimately the Spanish expulsion. So I'm going to share another insight with you, another perspective that really touches the core of our discussion of the process of change, how to discover your spark. You know, Rosh Hashanah, after the blowing of the shofar, there are beautiful words that are said every Rosh Hashanah. Hayom haras olam. What does Hayom haras or harat olam mean? So the English will tell you today is the birthday of the world. Today is the birthday of the world because Rosh Hashanah celebrates the anniversary of creation. Got it. But it's a very strange choice of words, because the words harat olam originate in Jeremiah, in the book of Yirmiyah, the prophet Jeremiah. But there, the connotation is the exact opposite. Jeremiah lived a very difficult life, and he cursed the day that he was born. And he says in his book, in Jeremiah, he says, I wish I would have been stillborn. I wish I would have remained eternally pregnant. In other words, I would have died in the womb of my mother and never seen the light of day. That's what he says. And the expression he uses is, I wish I would have been Harat Olam Rachma. I would have been eternally pregnant. You see, Harat means pregnant. Olam means eternally. I wish I would have remained eternally pregnant in my mother's womb. In other words, a stillborn baby. The sages took those words and they put it into the Rosh Hashanah liturgy. Harat became from pregnant, it became to mean birth. And Olam, instead of eternal, means the world. So we say Hayom Harat Olam, today is the birthday of the world. Really, Harat Olam means forever pregnant, not the birthday of the world. A very interesting twist on words. Pregnant became birth, and forever became world. Today is the birthday of the world. But the truth is that in this very strange change, they were trying to convey the exact message of the Jewish New Year. And that is that everybody makes a choice in the beginning of the year, when it comes Yom Kippur, when it comes Rosh Hashanah, this time of the year. And the choice is this: will I remain forever pregnant in the womb of my mom? Or will I have the courage to finally be born? Now that sounds like a strange question. Nobody here seems to choose the former. What do I mean, I'll remain pregnant in the womb of my mother? I have been born, for good or for bad. True, mothers on some level think that their children are still in them. It's very hard for mothers to really, really feel that your 50-year-old baby has been born, because he's still a baby, especially if he's a man. He also acts it. So it's hard for mothers to really, cut the umbilical cord psychologically. I mean, you do know that there was this little boy, and his mother sent him to preschool on the first day, 4 years old. And she looks at him and says, my angel, my malach, my sweetheart, my deliciousness, my beauty, my neshamala, my ziskite, my piece of heaven. You're going to go on the bus today, but mommy is going to be here right when you come back to hug you and kiss you, my angel, my heaven, my sweetheart, my paradise, my love, mwah, mwah, mwah. And she sends him off to school the first day. He comes home and she gives him a kiss and she says, my angel, how was school? What did you learn? He says, for starters, I learned that I have a name. It's David. It's hard for people. Okay, we get it. It was the other day, it was Rosh Hashanah in the morning. Rosh Hashanah in the morning, Monday morning. The mother walks into her son's bedroom. She says, Samuel, Shmuel, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. You got to go to shul. You got to go to shul. He says, no, I'm not going. She says, it's Rosh Hashanah. He says, I'm not going. Why should I go? Why should I go? I'm not going. She says, why don't you want to go to shul? He says, everybody hates me in shul. Everybody, the congregants, the board of directors, the president, the gabbai, everybody hates me. Why should I go to shul? And she says, 2 reasons. Number 1, you're 49. Number 2, you're the rabbi. So you see, what's the real question? What's the question? Am I going to remain pregnant or am I going to be born? But we all, I think, understand what that means. Every person sitting here in this room, every person is pregnant with potential, with dreams, with aspirations. We're full of possibility, especially as we're young and we begin to explore life, and youngsters are dreamers. And we're pregnant with all this possible vitality and life and future. But the question a person has to answer is, will my dreams remain eternally pregnant in me? Will I essentially experience a miscarriage, psychologically speaking, of my aspirations, of my possibilities? Or will I have the courage to finally be born? They say there was a baby camel. I listen sometimes to animals speak because they're very intelligent. People, it's a little harder to listen to. But animals always have what to say. And it's usually practical, productive, because they're just, I don't know, their genes just tell them to do three things. To do things that are good for them to live and to propagate and to help their environment. They're not so complicated like us. Like, for example, I never saw a sheep say, I would love the black and white, but I have a wedding next week. Or a horse say, I would take the lollipop with the ice cream, but I really have to look good next week. Somehow they're fine with grass. Okay, we have other issues. So I'm overhearing this conversation, between camels, at least in my perception, of course. I don't really understand animal language. I barely understand my own, but I was watching the two camels. This baby camel turns to mommy. Says, Mommy, ich will dir fragen 3 Scheiles. I want to ask you 3 questions. Sure. Man ishtana hagamal hazeh mikol hagamalim mikol hachayot. Why is this camel, why are we different than all other animals? Mommy says, what do you mean? We're very proud. We're great animals. We're camels. She says, Mommy, the 3-toed ugly legs. Why? Oh, daughter, come on. Let me explain to you about your greatness. We're not regular animals. We are capable of marching thousands of miles. So we need strong, sturdy feet to support those journeys. Ma, why these grotesque eyelashes? We marched thousands of miles through the Sahara Desert. There are sandstorms. Who knows what comes our way? Between Matthews and sandstorms, we could get blind. So we have these eyelashes to protect our eyes. Mommy, and why these horrible humps? Why can't we just have a little smoother, nicer backs? Why these big humps? My daughter. When you march thousands of miles through deserts, there's no water. We can go weeks throughout without water, but we need a place to store the water we drink before, and we have these humps where we store all these large quantities of water so we can live weeks without water. Wow, one more question. I get it. We have 3-toed legs, even though they're ugly, to march thousands of miles. Big ugly eyelashes to protect us from sandstorms as we march thousands of miles. Humps to be able to store water as we march thousands of miles. So one more question. If this is so, what in the world are we doing in a cage in the zoo? This is the question of Haras Olam. If you're capable of so much, why are you allowing these dreams to remain eternally pregnant in your brain and not bringing them to fruition? One of the great rabbis of the previous generation was the rabbi of the city of Volozhin in Belarus. He was also the head of the famed yeshiva of Volozhin. Volozhin is a city in Belarus, the Volozhin yeshiva. He's known as the Netziv, which is an acronym for Naftali Tzvi YEHUDI Berlin. Rabbi Naftali Tzvi YEHUDI Berlin. He was a prolific author, great scholar, and a tremendous teacher. He raised generations of students. And the Netziv, that's how he's known. Netziv is acronym. Nun Tzadik Yud Veis, Naftali Tzvi YEHUDI Berlin. He passed away in the 1890s, 1893. He once completed one of his works, and they made a celebration in the yeshiva. And he got up at the celebration, and he said, I want to tell you something about myself. When I was a child, I was a horrible student. I wasted my time all day. Bar mitzvah came, and I went to sleep one night. But I couldn't fall asleep as I overhear a conversation between my father and mother in the kitchen. And my father tells my mother, I thought with his mind, he would be able to become a really great Torah giant. But it doesn't look like it's working. So tomorrow, I made an appointment for him with a carpenter. He seems good with his hands. He's going to become an apprentice for a carpenter, and at least he'll be able to make a decent, fine living, support himself by building wooden utensils, items, vessels, and so forth. I'm in bed, and I hear my father saying to my mother, tomorrow I'm going to take him as his first day as an apprentice. I leave my bedroom, I come out to the kitchen, and I say, Father, Mother, please, I would love to succeed in learning Torah. Give me another chance. His father says, we tried for so many years. What's the point of you sitting and wasting years? It's already after Bar Mitzvah, everybody goes to work. This is the shtetl. Today people sit for years and years on the same bench. But people worked. You had to support yourself. A carpenter is a very fine, respectable job. He says, Father, no, give me a chance, I want to learn. And he's crying. So he says, my father said, okay, one more day. One more day he'll go to yeshiva, and we'll see. So the Netziv tells the students, I went the next day to yeshiva, and the rest is history. Here I am today. And he tells his students, do you know what motivated me to get out of bed and challenge my father's decision to make me a carpenter apprentice? It's a great job, and I'm good with my hands. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why. I decided I was thinking about my end, the end of my life. And when people come up to heaven after they die, God interviews you. So I would come for my interview, and God would say, Naftali Tzvi Hershela, they called him Reb Hershel, welcome to heaven. Tell me, what did you accomplish in the world? And I would tell God, I was a great carpenter. So God would say, wow, that's wonderful. And God always wants to see samples. So he would say, show me samples. Say, look at my stender. Okay, this is not wood, but could have been. Look at the bookcases. Look at the mahogany table. Look at the cedar wooden candelabra. Look at the couch. Look at the chair. Look at the lectern. Look at the Aron Kodesh. Look at the bookcases. Look at these walls. Look at these frames. Look at these structures. This is all mine. And God would say, psst, psst. I think I might become a customer. But I have a question. Where is your ha'amek davar? Where is your harchiv davar? Where is your imrei shefer? He started to list off all the books that he wrote. The books of scholarship that he wrote. Where is your imrei shefer on the Haggadah? Where is your ha'amek davar on Chumash? Where is your harchiv davar on Torah? Where is your ha'amek sheila on the sheiltos? He went through all the works that he wrote. God would say, where are all these books? And I wouldn't have an answer. They remained pregnant. They experienced a miscarriage. I do have to tell you a cute sequence. The other day, the head of a yeshiva was talking to his students. And he wasn't very impressed about their diligence. So he told them the story. And he says, now let me tell you what's going to happen when you guys die. You're going to come to heaven and God will say, what did you do your whole life? They said, we stayed in yeshiva and kollel our whole life. God will say, wonderful, but I have a question. Where is the stender? Where is the table? Where are the benches? Where are the mahoganies you were supposed to create? He says, that's what he's going to want to know from you. You have to know who you are. You have to know what you're capable of. And you have to be able to zoom in on your possible child and fetus and allow it to be born. So on Yom Kippur, when the high priest came out of the Holy of Holies, when you go into your own Holy of Holies, you become pregnant with possibility. But you know what happens? We have miscarriages. It remains there. So what was the one prayer he asked for? Shana shalai tapil isha pri bitna. It should be a year in which no human being, no woman, and all the Jewish people are defined as God's spouse, as God's kala, as God's bride, should miscarry their infinite potential, of course physical children as well, but their infinite potential and possibilities and children and dreams and aspirations. But what is the greatest reason? What is the reason for people not having the ability to be able to get out of the cage? Why do the camels get into the cage? Why aren't those camels achieving their goals, maximizing their potentials? Why? What is the greatest reason? And perhaps you might say there's a lot of fear, there is insecurity, there are scars, there are wounds, there is the need for conformity, there's the question of, pleasing others, being mocked by others. there is inner stagnation or paralysis or a sense of inaction that may be safer. If I just remain pregnant, I don't make a ruckus. I don't make too many waves, no ripple effect. I'll just surrender to mediocrity. Who said Thoreau? I think most people live lives of quiet desperation. But what is the reason? The reason we address right when we come into Yom Kippur, and that's the secret of Kol Nidre. What is really Kol Nidre? You see, there are two types of promises that people make in life. There are promises that I make to you. I'm going to do this and this for you. There are promises I make to myself. I'm going to lose 60 pounds within the next few hours. Okay, classical Jewish promises. But there are other promises, much deeper promises. There are the promises you make to yourself, about your capabilities. There are promises I say to myself, this is just how it is. I swear to myself that this is who I am and I can't change. Some people tell themselves, my marriage will never be happy. It's destined to be miserable. Me, my body, I'll never be able to really turn it into the body I like. My life is destined to be this type of life. My relationship with my children will forever be compromised. My relationship with my parents will forever be problematic. Me and my mother will just never get along. Me and my father, we haven't spoken for a year, we won't speak for the next year. Me and my brother, forget about it. If you would have such a brother, me and my sister, oh my God. We put ourselves into confined boxes and we promise ourselves that this is the way it's supposed to be. We are tied down by shackles, by cords that don't allow us to emerge. So what's the first thing you have to do on Yom Kippur? You have to nullify the vows. Which vows? The vows that you have been making and you will be making to yourself, and I will be making to myself, about what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of, about what type of year I'm going to have, about what type of relationship I'm going to have, about what type of marriage I'm going to have, about what type of accomplishments I'm going to be able to accomplish, about what type of life I am going to live, physically, financially, socially, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. The other day, there was a non-Jewish American family. Their last name is Smith. They are very proud of their lineage. You know why? Their ancestry has arrived. They had an ancestor who arrived to these shores on the Mayflower in the 1600s. And they hired a researcher to write a book about the family because they wanted to display and transmit this pride to their children, because they are basically from the founding fathers, the first pilgrims who came to this country which would become the United States of America. The researcher started to research the family history, and you know, whenever you research family history, you come across a skeleton or two. So he comes across, to their dismay, the story of great-great-uncle Clarence Smith. And you know the story of Clarence Smith, right? He died on the electric chair because he was a criminal. He was a real criminal. Now, what do? This is part of the family history. So in our circles, you just eliminate him from the history, and you make a book and you make believe he never existed. And we love to call that history. We have no issue with revisionism. I read a lot of Jewish biographies. Their connection to truth is like my relationships with turtles in New Zealand. Even less, because I like turtles in New Zealand. Their regard for historical accuracy is null, it's void. In fact, I told somebody, but it's not history, it's called his story. Which is fine, just don't call it history. Put a hyphen in the middle, his story. So that's what we do. But non-Jews can't always afford that luxury. They don't always think in such broad terms. Some of them believe in something we call integrity or accuracy. So when you're writing a biography about the family, you got to write about the family. If Clarence Smith was executed on the electric chair, what are you going to do? To delete it from the story is inaccurate. To put it into the story will cast a stain on the family. It's worthless to write the book. So the author, the researcher says, you know what? I have dealt with these situations in the past. I will put in the full truth. They said, you can't. It's going to destroy the family name. No. I'll do it in a way that will be true, but it will not embarrass the family. Okay. Day of publication, they run to the store, they buy the book, they look at the index in the back, Clear and Smith, page 78. They turn to page 78, and there is the story, and this is what it says. Great-great-uncle Clarence Smith occupied an important chair in a vital governmental institution. He was tied to his position with the greatest of shackles. And despite all of his attempts and desires, he could not tear himself away from that important chair in this great governmental institution. He remained connected to his position till his last breath. His death came as a sudden shock. So you see, my friends. Okay, I also just got it. Don't feel bad. It's a pretty good one. You see, my friends, I cannot experience Yom Kippur if I don't say Kol Nidre, because I'm tied down with shackles. What is Kol Nidre? Kol Nidre is basically a declaration. Not that I have no trauma. That's not true. I may. Not that I have no fears. Oh, I have a lot of fears. Not that I have no insecurities. I have lots of insecurities. That's why I'm a public speaker. Not that I don't have pain to deal with. Not that I don't have issues. I don't know a Jew that doesn't have issues. In fact, the only people I know that are perfect are the people I don't know. The only marriages I know that are perfect are the marriages I don't know. So it's not that I don't have this, you don't have this, and therefore, of course, all my dreams just come to fruition. It's that I am more powerful than my trauma. I am more powerful than my pain. I am larger than my insecurity. I am deeper than my frailties. I have all of them. But the eye of the soul is, as the Tanya says, a chelek eloka mimal, mamash. The soul is a fragment of God. It's as invincible as God. It has all the confidence, wholesomeness, sacredness, power, joy, optimism of its creator. The verse in Psalm says, we say it every morning in the morning prayers in YEHUDI, Oiz v'chedva b'mkaimai. There is confidence and joy in God's space. How do you know that you're in God's space? Any time of the day or the night, how do you know? Two things. If you're operating from a place of confidence and you're operating from a place of joy. Because the soul is always in a space of confidence and always in a space of joy. Do I have moments where I lack confidence and joy? Of course. But the eye, the true eye, the deep eye, my soul, is more powerful than my chains. It's more powerful than my trauma. It's more powerful than my pain. It's more powerful than my fears. My fears are there, but my soul is more powerful. And therefore, I can declare Kol Nidre, that all the shackles that I have placed upon myself, all the chains that lock me in, that confine me, and that I will be making from this Yom Kippur to next Yom Kippur. All the times I will be saying, I can't. I will forever remain in conflict. I will forever be the depressed soul. I will forever be the neb. I will forever be obese. I will forever be in a fight with this one and that one. I will never get really along with my siblings or children or parents or partners or friends and so forth. All these commitments that we make to ourselves are based on a superficial version of yourself. But when you discover a deeper version of yourself, which is what Yom Kippur is all about, how do you start the day? When you discover your real I, the first thing you have to say, all these vows I made to myself about myself are absolved. Now come back to the song, come back to the words, and tell me, do they match or do they not match? When we can interpret it not just in terms of legalities, but in terms of psychological chains, shackles, cords, and ropes. The melody mamish fits and matches the words. My promises are no promises, and my pledges are no pledges. And my oaths are no oaths. You see, this is the deep declaration of a free soul, of a liberated, emancipated spirit, that my vows, my promises, my oaths, in which I confined myself and limited myself and promised myself, this is just the way it is. I am destined to this pattern, to this relationship, to this lifestyle, to these inhibitions, to this reality. It's worthless. It's not more powerful than me. It's not more powerful than my soul, which is a chelik elikamal, which is part of the divine. Which, if we think about it, answers a very fundamental and interesting question. Every Jew, every student of the Bible knows Adam and Eve are created on Rosh Hashanah, and the Torah says man was created in God's image. And the obvious question is, God doesn't have an image. Moses tells us hundreds of times, God has no image. He's imageless. What do we mean when we say human beings are created in God's image? God has no image. To say God has an image is a form of idolatry. It's anathema to the Jewish faith. So what do you mean I and you and every human being from Adam and Eve were created in God's image? Oh, Gewalt, let me open your hearts. Let me tell you the secret of this. When we say the human being was created in God's image and God has no image, that's the point. If I was created in God's image and God has no image, it means I also have no image. I choose my image. I don't have an image. You might tell me, of course I have an image. We all have images. There's what I look like. I have my DNA, I have my genetic, my genetic makeup, my chemistry, my disposition, my upbringing, my nature, my nurture. What do you mean I have no image? Of course I have images. We all have an image. We have an image to others, we have an image to ourselves. True, but the real human being is created in God's image. And God is imageless, meaning the core of your being has no image. You're not fixed in any image. You're not. We tell ourselves we're fixed in an image. We tell ourselves, I can't, I'm afraid, it's not gonna work. That's a voice, that's a thought, that's not you. You have no image, just like God has no image. You choose your image. I choose who I'm going to be today. I choose who I'm going to be now. I choose what I'm going to do in an hour. I choose it, I have no image. I create an image every moment. But it's a choice I have to make. If I don't create an image every moment, I have my default image. My default image is victimhood. But that's not my real image. My real image is that I have no image. I choose an image. I have thoughts, I have voices that tell me I have an image, but that's not my image. My image is God's image, and God has no image. He chooses his image. So this other day, there was a bar mitzvah. You heard of a bar mitzvah, right? That's when Jews come and eat sushi. So, no, it's a very important idea, because if there's no sushi, there are many opinions that the bar mitzvah did not happen. You have to redo, and the same thing by a wedding. You may have to redo the wedding if there was no sushi. It's an important halachic view that you should take into consideration. Not all Jews agree, but a very big majority of Orthodox Jews believe that. So it's very important. Now, So this guy, this boy wants to give a bar mitzvah speech. You know what you do in bar mitzvah speeches, right? You thank people that you don't really like. So he comes to his mother and he says, Mommy, I want to talk about our family ancestry, where we come from. So mother says, where come from? And she starts waxing eloquent about her mother and grandmother and great. No, Mommy, all the way back. Where do we come from? I want to talk about the beginning. The beginning. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And on the sixth day, he created Adam and Eve. And they had children. I'm not sure why. And those children had more children. And the rest is his story. History, or actually her story. Okay. And where do we come from? Oh, this is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah. Comes to his father. His father was a very educated graduate of Columbia University and Yale University, an enlightened fellow. He says, Daddy, where do we come from? So Daddy tells him about the family lineage. No, the beginning. Daddy says, the beginning? It began with a primordial soup and a big bang some 15.3 billion years ago. And after hundreds of millions of years, billions of years of evolution, the Homo sapien emerged. So he says, Daddy, I'm confused, but what were we before? He says, before that we were apes. And what were the apes before? Oh, they were monkeys. And where did they come? They came from other primates. And how did it all begin? It began with an explosion of gas and bacteria. He comes back to his mother and says, Mommy, I'm really confused about my bar mitzvah speech. I want to talk about where we come from. You tell me we come from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and God. Adam, Eve, God. Daddy tells me we come from apes, monkeys, and bacteria. So what should I say? Who do we come from? And his mother says, son, there's no contradiction here. Your father was talking about his side of the family. And I'm talking about my side of the family. So this is a very profound idea. We each have two sides of the family. There's your father's side of the family, and there's mom's side of the family. I could look in the mirror and see an ape. And you know what? When I'm by a smorgasbord, I feel like one. And sometimes I even look like one. And it's true. It's true. There is a part of us that is a beast, and a beast has an image. A beast has an image. Only the human being was created in God's image. But I can also look in the mirror and say, you know what my image is? My image is that I have to choose an image. That's my image. I choose an image. There's no ropes. Kol Nidrei. Yom Kippur, I have absolved them. And that's what the high priest asks for. A year in which no person miscarries. A year in which all of your infinite potential, aspirations, dreams, possibilities come gushing forth. They emerge from your symbolic womb into the world to bring so much more light that our world desperately needs. And you know, I have to say, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but I mean it actually in an inspiring way. 3 days before Rosh Hashanah was the funeral of Shimon Peres, the 9th president of Israel. 70 world leaders came to his funeral in Jerusalem to bid farewell, including the president of the United States, including leaders of Britain and France, and 70 countries were represented there. Very impressive. A Polish Yiddish Engel, a Polish little Jewish boy whose grandfather was burnt alive with 8 family members. And in 1942, his own grandfather, his name was Reb Tzvi Meltzer, a graduate of the Volozhina yeshiva that I spoke about before, the Netziv's yeshiva. His Zayda came from Volozhin. His name was not Shimon Peres, his name was Shimon Peresky, but that's a shtetl name. So of course, like many names, they changed it to Hebraic, Zionist sounding names, Hebraicized names. And here 70 leaders come. But there's something interesting about Shimon Peres, and that is that he kept on losing the Israeli elections. I don't even know if there was one election that he ever won. He kept on running and running and running and running, and he lost every election. By default, Rabin was assassinated. So Shimon Peres becomes an acting prime minister until Netanyahu defeats him. But this was the story of his life. Almost every office he ran for, he lost. You would think at some point a person should get a message and say, you know what, it's time to start eating laffa and retire into some farm or into some nice Tel Aviv condominium, and all is good. This man, at the age of 93, still had plans galore. So his son, Chami Peres, asks his father a short while before he died, he's 93, what should I write on your tombstone? And you know what Shimon Peres says? You should write, he died prematurely. There's a lesson in that. He died prematurely. What a profound lesson. And he worked and worked and relentlessly. And they made fun of him constantly. And they wrote sometimes not such this. And you know that I believe that many of his policies were profoundly ill-conceived, especially one particular policy. But I'm not addressing now ideological or political disagreements. I'm addressing the drive of a human being to be born, not to remain pregnant forever. And look how he went out. There was no Israeli leader who was elected, who served for many years, who went out with that respect, where world leaders had such a deep affection and respect for him. And I'm not now getting into the details again of his policies. I know it's a painful and it's a different topic. And today there was another terrorist attack in the holy city of Jerusalem. And it's all connected to the philosophy of appeasement, whatever. It's a separate subject, a painful subject. But it teaches us about human drive, about human ambition, about the ability of a person not to define themselves and say, I am a loser. Because that's what Peres could have easily done, and for justified reasons. In fact, they called him in Israeli newspapers, they would call him the eternal loser. You know, Jews are not stingy with titles for other people. Right? Ask your grandmother. How many words do we have in English for a poor person? I don't know, 2? A poverty-stricken guy and a pauper? How many words do they have in Yiddish? An oreman, a kaptzen, a schlamazel, a nudnik, a schnorrer, a lo yutzlachnik, an idiot, a klolle, a zudreiter, macht me mischuge, kann gar nicht mit sein Leben, and many more. We're pretty good at titles for people, especially people that we like. So that's what they called him, the eternal loser. Imagine you were called in politics, not by your third grade teacher, that you go to therapy for. But what when a whole country calls you an eternal loser on newspapers? You sit down and you say, okay, I guess I'm a loser. Fine, let me go to therapy and figure it out. And maybe one day I'll be a winner. But so he could have had that image. He didn't allow that. And he ultimately becomes the president of Israel, very popular president. And he goes out and he's like the face of Israel to the world. The high priest asked for this on Yom Kippur, a year in which no woman, no person miscarries, because every person is filled with so much potential. And it's such a great tragedy when we die prematurely, especially when we die prematurely when we're still alive. Thank you.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.